Assalamu alaikum. The topic today is about the death of Isa alayhi salam as from the Bible and from the Quran. So this will probably be in two parts because it's a fairly extensive lecture. I'll start with the dua. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-rahmanir rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. So you see in traditional viewpoints in Islam, they say that Isa or Jesus is living in heaven with Allah, and that he was lifted bodily from the earthly abode and was taken by the angels or so forth to heaven, and he resides there with living and is in an earthly body. And they base this upon some weak hadiths. While the material from the Quran does not support this view, the Quran is very clear that Isa has passed away. And the Gospels also are a little unclear on this matter, but I can show you from the Gospels that Isa did not actually die and on the cross, and he was lifted not to heaven, but he migrated from Palestine to India, where he taught for the remainder of his life to the lost Jews, lost tribes of the Jews. These are misconceptions that are in the Islamic lore as well as in the Christian lore about Isa alayhi salam, and Ahmadiyya came to explain these things, that these were incorrect, and that Prophet Jesus actually was on the crucifix, and not like the Muslims believe that he wasn't placed on the crucifix, but he was on the crucifix, but he did not die on the crucifix. He was in a stupor, he was taken down, and then after that he was recovered somewhat. After a couple of days he left that area eventually, but he stayed for a little while and met with the companions and met with Mary and his wife Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, and then he migrated from there to Egypt and then to Afghanistan and India. So it is in the Quran in Surah Nisa, verse 157, and for this saying, we have killed the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, the messenger of Allah, and they killed him not, nor did they cause his death on the cross, but was made to appear to them as such. And certainly those who differ therein are in doubt about it. They have no knowledge about it, but only follow a conjecture, and they killed him not for certain. So you see, the Quran is very clear that Isa did not die on the cross. The word in the Quran is a little confusing to some people. It says, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ, which means, according to traditional scholars, that he was not placed on the crucifix. But salabu is actually death on the cross, or death in a well-known way. And it does not mean that he did not go on the cross, but his death does not occur on the cross. So today I'm going to talk mainly about the Gospels, and but I will say here that walakin shubbaha lahum. So Muslims say that somebody took the image of Jesus and he was crucified instead. And these are just insane comments. You know, you can't take the image of another person and become that person. These have no validity in sanity, and it's based upon weak hadith. And the word up here is walakin shubbaha lahum, refers to Jesus in this ayah. It doesn't refer to anybody else. So the Quran is clear that it was repaid to them that he had died, but he had not died, and they killed him not for certain. And I'm going to take out certain things from the Gospels as well, that Jesus remained on the cross only for a few hours, according to Mark and John. And death on the cross is slow, it's tardy. It does not happen in a few hours. And it was Passover, and the Jews had requested that the legs of the three people on the cross be broken, and we know that Jesus' legs were not broken. And when it was checked to see whether he was still alive or not, when Pilate pierced his side, and according to the John, it was the guard who pierced his side, but from my information, it was Pilate who came to oversee that he was saved, and he was not crucified, and was not, as he did not want his death on his hands. And so after a few hours, they were brought down. The two insurgents, or the thieves, their legs were broken and they died. And Jesus' legs were not broken, and he did not die from internal hemorrhage. And according to John, when the side was pierced, blood flowed, which indicates that the heart was pumping. As you know, that a dead man, when the skin is pierced, only congealed blood comes out. So you see, blood flowed, and that's what the Bible says, that there was a flowing of blood, and that's in the Hebrew language. You can look it up as well in the dictionary, that it means the flowing of blood. So the breaking of legs was resulted in the two criminals, and Pilate did not believe that Jesus could have died in so short a time, and Pilate did not want his death on his hands. Pilate's wife had a dream, and that he was an innocent man, and that she asked Pilate to save him, and he did so. He went actually to the crucifixion site after he was hung, and dispersed the people some, and brought him down. And then after that, he was given to Joseph Arimathea for safety, and it was purported that he had died, and he was taken to the tomb. But actually, he stayed in the jungle, and the tomb was a ruse. It was just a ruse to show that he had died while he had not died, and they wanted to cover his tracks. And this is what happened, that the people later indicated that he had died, but he actually walked away from the crucifixion site and stayed in the jungle for a couple of days. And when Mary Magdalene saw him, he had already shaved his beard, and she thought he was the gardener. And it's there in John 20 that she made a mistake, and because she really did not recognize him. And the only reason she would not recognize him would be that he was in disguise. And he remained in disguise for the remainder of his stay in Palestine. And you know that there's several incidents where that are mentioned. One is when on the Sunday that he walked to Galilee with two of his disciples, and they thought they did not recognize him either. And you know, he was scared for his life, and a person who is resurrected cannot have fear for his life because he's not going to die again. A resurrected person does not die again. So obviously, Jesus did not die, and he was in a stupor, and he thought that he would cover his tracks by indicating that he had died, and his disciples followed suit as well. But that also in when Simon Peter and the other disciples were fishing, he came to the shore, and they did not recognize him, and then they recognized him, and then he met them in their house, and he ate fish with them, and Thomas put his fingers in the wound of Jesus, and because he wasn't sure whether Jesus was living. So it's clear that Jesus was survived the crucifixion process and did not die. And it's more plausible that he survived the crucifixion process and escaped and did not die, because after 2 days a person does not come to life. We have to be real, and we have to understand that these things don't happen, that after 2 days of death a person is resurrected. These things don't happen like that. And it's more plausible that he was alive, and he survived the crucifixion process, and then after that he left Palestine and went to the lost tribes of Israel and taught them up there. And he stayed there till the time he died. And there's a grave site up there in Kashmir where there's a saint prophet who is buried up there by the name of Yusuf, and you can look it up on the internet. And feet impressions are there at the grave, showing that the crucifixion scar was still there before he died. Mary took him to be a gardener. His disciples did not recognize him. His 2 disciples, when they walked to Galilee, did not recognize him. He still felt hunger. So obviously he was a human being who felt hunger. A resurrected spirit does not feel hunger. And a resurrection in the body type, obviously, if he's reincarnated in body, then he would not feel hunger, because he would be already past the dying stage, and he would be in a different stage. And as the Christians believe that he was lifted bodily to heaven and is on the right side of God. These things are just fables and tales that Paul made up, and some of the disciples also followed suit and did the same. So Jesus himself did not indicate that to his disciples, and it's there in the teachings of the Gospels that he was alive, and he was very much alive, and he showed Thomas his hand and showed him the scar. So obviously he had survived it, and it's just made up that he was resurrected, because the word tawaffa in the Quran and the word moth is the same for stupor and or unconscious state or sleep state and death in the Quran, in the Arabic language and in the Hebrew language. So you see, the disciples covered his tracks and said that he had died, while it was obvious that he had survived, and he lived there in Palestine for a few weeks before he eventually left the area. So these are some of the teachings that I have from Ahmadiyya literature. And there's also another point that I need to make, is that in Hebrews 5:7, it was clear that Jesus prayed to be saved, and Allah accepted his prayer. And it is there in Hebrews 7 that he was heard and listened to. And when he went on the crucifix, he was surprised, and he said those words, Elohim, Elohim, why have you forsaken me? So obviously, he was surprised about that, and he had been given this surety that he would not die, and he actually did not die. He went into a stupor and he was brought down, and he migrated from there. And you can look up on the websites about his grave in Kashmir, and the writing in the Ahmadiyya literature is preserved there in the Puranas, where he talked to people and told them that he was Isa, the Masih, and this is all they tabulated on the Ahmadiyya websites about this matter, that he survived it and he went there. So tomorrow or in the future, I will give a lecture from the Quranic verses that show that Isa had died a normal death, and that he is not living in heaven. And just remember that there are weak hadiths that purport that he was lifted bodily to heaven, or that somebody took his image, or the God took his image. These are not the teachings of the Quran. And the Quran is very clear and very categorical that he had died as all messengers have died. Jazakallah khair.